What's happening, everybody? Trey here, joined again by my dad Sean, and today on Reactions to the Classics, we're going to be taking a look at one of the biggest selling albums of all time, Meat Loaf's 1977 record, Bat Out of Hell. This is the first time I've really heard any Meat Loaf.
I'm only familiar with one song from the 90s, I'll Do Anything for Love, but I won't do that.
We were excited to kind of see what one of the biggest selling albums of all time sounded like, and if this is your first time checking us out at the channel, we appreciate you stopping by. Your Reactions to the Classics, we take a look back at some of the most classic albums of all time, do a detailed track-by-track review of them, and just like today, it's usually the first time we've heard the record. So if that sounds like something interesting to you, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button, and we also have links to our Facebook and Patreon down below if you want to check that out. But let's just start in this thing, get into the quick facts.
Well, as you mentioned, this is his debut studio album, released in September of 1977. It's number 343 on the Rolling Stones Top 500 Albums of All Time. You already mentioned, Trey, it's one of the greatest selling albums of all time. Sold over 43 million copies, still sells 200,000 copies a year. It sold 14 million copies in Australia. It's the number one selling album of all time there, and spent 485 weeks on the UK chart, second to only Fleetwood Mac's Rumours, which spent 522 weeks on the chart. All that to say, this thing sells like you would not believe, and still does.
And this developed from a musical called Neverland, which is a futuristic rock version of Peter Pan, which Jim Steinman wrote. He and Meat Loaf were touring with the National Lampoon show, felt that they had 3 songs that were exceptional, and then Steinman wanted to develop that as part of a 7-song set that they could make into a record.
Yeah, and it's often compared to Springsteen, and specifically to the album Born to Run. Steinman's went on record saying he finds that musically puzzling. Springsteen was an influence and an inspiration, but he wasn't trying to copy him. Max and Roy from the E Street Band, ironically enough, actually play on this album, which just further solidified that, hey, he's trying to copy Springsteen.
Yeah, and Steinman and Meat Loaf had quite the time trying to get somebody to sign them for this record. They spent much of 75 recording the album, then shopping it to a bunch of different labels.
For 2.5 years.
And Steinman ended up lobbying producer Todd Rundgren to take on the project. Both Steinman and Rundgren were influenced by Phil Spector's Wall of Sound. Rundgren thought the album was a parody of Bruce Springsteen, laughed at it, thought it was hilarious. But Meat Loaf and Steinman told Rundgren that they had previously been signed to RCA. When Rundgren discovered that the deal with RCA did not exist, Rundgren essentially paid for the album himself.
Yeah, so another E Street member, Stevie Van Zandt, steps in, tries to get Cleveland International Records to sign them. After listening to the spoken word intro into You Took the Words Right Out of My Mouth, founder Steve Popovich accepted the album for Cleveland. At their parent label, Epic, almost everyone hated it, but Popovich was relentless in his efforts to get Epic and all of radio on board. Response to the album was slow. Steinman's gone on record saying because it was turned down, as you mentioned, for 2.5 straight years, it was kind of viewed as damaged goods. The album actually hit big in Canada. Then finally he got Epic on board, and then the rest is history. First up, we get to the title track, Bat Out of Hell. It was released as a single in 79 and in 93. Steinman wrote all the songs on here. He actually wanted to get album cover with Meat Loaf. They settled with songs by Jim Steinman, as Epic didn't want to push Steinman. They wanted to push the actual recording artist. Steinman said he wanted to write the most extreme crash song of all time. The whole album's based on teenagers, rock and roll, sex, all of that stuff. And that's kind of what he did on this thing. It kind of sets the scene for the next 6 songs.
Yeah, so essentially this teenager is and spending the night with his girlfriend's house. He wants to get out of his hometown though. He scurries on out of there on his motorcycle.
Riding faster than he's ever gone before.
Yeah, exactly. And then just gets into a terrible car wreck, and then the imagery and the lyrics really just paint the scene of how messed up this dude is as he's pretty much on its deathbed.
This song is long. I mean, all these songs are long. It's 7 songs. The album's over 40.
We started with like 2 minutes of instrumental.
I could have went with maybe 30 seconds of instrumental to set the scene. It's just guitar and piano, but mainly piano in that thing. For me, it was fine. It's like this whole album, guys, it's like you're watching a play, a quote, rock opera. I mean, it is what it is. That's exactly what this whole thing paints. This song for me was probably, I mean, there's 7 songs, guys, so it's probably maybe the third or fourth best song on here for me.
Yeah, I thought that it did a good job just setting the tone for what we were about to get into. Brought forth some of the themes of recollection and even regret of life that are played out further down the line. It was 9 minutes long. I think it was a little overblown at points, but it was one of the top tracks, I think, on the record. And then that takes us to the next track.
You took the words right out of my mouth, parentheses, hot summer night.
And this begins with a spoken word intro from Steinman and actress Marsha McLean. Meat Loaf asked Steinman to write a song that was not 15 or 20 minutes long, and in Meat Loaf's words, a pop song. Yeah, that spoken word intro didn't do it for me.
Didn't do it for me either. They should have cut that thing. If you love it, I'm sorry. It just didn't fit here. It kind of made the album seem, I don't know, like they just shouldn't have had it in there because there's nowhere else in there where we have this kind of thing. I understand it's, you know, it's playing out in our mind and they're painting a story, but this was actually released as the first single, which I thought was an odd choice. It didn't even chart. Musically, it's inspired by the rock chords of Baba O'Reilly. It's about the protagonist's first ever kiss with a girl and uses, like so many songs on the album, the vivid imagery and small details to help place the listener in his situation. Probably my least favorite song on here.
I wasn't a huge fan of it myself, but I thought the female backing vocals added a nice touch in there. And then we're going to move to track 3.
Heaven Can Wait, which was actually my favorite song on here. The thing is this, guys, whether you like Meat Loaf, whether you don't like him, his voice is really, really good.
He's got some pipes.
He's got a strong voice. He's got some pipes. And I thought this thing stripped away all the other theatrical stuff.
Yeah, it wasn't as, I think, overblown. It was more ballad.
Yeah, and you got to really just sit in the music and sit in his lyrics and his voice. And so for me, it was my favorite. I mean, it talks about he's waiting for heaven because he's with this girl and he's got everything he wants right here.
Yeah, and it had a string arrangement which lent to that angelic, heavenly atmosphere. And he also noted, all I've got is time until the end of time. Just a unique little line in there that I enjoy. This was one of my 2 favorite songs.
And that takes us to...
All revved up with no place to go, we return to a high school kid looking for a girl to sleep with on a Saturday night. And this had a saxophone by Edgar Winter in here that I thought was pretty nice, but I must admit there are some pretty cheesy lyrics. It says, I was a varsity tackle and a hell of a block, and when I played my guitar, I made the canyons rock. A little cheesy, but...
And it's, you know, picture yourself in high school, you're cruising around Maine, you're looking for a chick to hook up with. That's what this thing is, all revved up with no place to go. That's really all I had to say.
We had some tempo changes. I mean, I could see what they were trying to make it that epic operatic type feel, but I wasn't a huge fan of that track. But we move on to one of the more famous songs.
Yeah, and a very good song. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Reaching number 11 in the U.S., sold 1 million copies and remains the second highest charting single for him in the U.S. behind the aforementioned that I was familiar with, I'd Do Anything for Love, but I won't do that. Is the final song written for the album. Steinman was challenged by Mimi Kennedy, who was a cast member of his current musical at the time, Rheingold, to write something simple. While she was saying it, the oldie station on the radio was playing the Elvis song, I Want You, I Need You, I Love You. She said, why don't you write something simple like that? I said, being Steinman, well, I'll try. He went home, tried so hard, but the best he could do was, I want you, I need you, but there ain't no way I'm ever gonna love you. Don't be sad, because 2 out of 3 ain't bad. It was the closest Steinman could come to Elvis with a little twist on it, and that's basically what the song is about. He tells her he
wants her, he needs her, but he's not gonna be able to love her. So 2 out of 3 ain't bad, you know. He's got the 2 out of 3, and as we progress through the song, we see his ex-lover did the same thing to him.
Exactly.
And now he's doing it to his lover. So I thought that was unique. Again, we kind of get a more ballad, stripped back, not as grand type of arrangement, but I thought that worked for it. This would be my favorite track by
it's probably margin. There with Heaven Can Wait for me, yeah.
Then we're starting to close the record out. We go into a long track yet again, 8+ minutes.
Paradise by the Dashboard Light, which is a duet with Ellen Foley.
And this is split into 3 different sections, could say. And Steinman wanted to write a car sex song that was going to be just an ultimate epic. They initially wanted it to be 27 minutes long, and at the end, everything goes horribly wrong.
Yeah, part 1 is Paradise. Open with the characters reminiscing about days as young high school couple on a date. They're parking by a lake, having fun, experiencing, quote, paradise by the dashboard light, until the male character insists they're going to go all the way tonight. Then it cuts to this baseball broadcast. His pushing matters mirrored by Yankees announcer famous Phil Rizzuto, broadcasting a portion of a baseball game serves as a metaphor for his attempts to achieve his goal. This is where this thing went off the rails. I mean, it derailed so far off the track, Trey. I can't even see the train.
Dude, I thought that was the most hilarious part of the album. This guy gets on.
I mean, I know exactly what they're doing. I get it. I mean, you can picture.
I mean, it was incredibly kind of cheesy, don't get me wrong, but that was one of the sections that actually I could see what they were doing, and it kind of worked for me, and I just thought it was hilarious. He's going all the way. We got the suicide squeeze, and then it stops when he's going home, and then we get Let Me Sleep on It, because the woman stops him and is like, you can't go any further until you promise me you're going to love
me forever. Like, and, she basically wants a marriage vow right there before she agrees to
go all the way with it, and then the guy's just like, oh, let me sleep on it. Let me sleep on it.
He's trying to put off the question, and then he finally agrees, like, because he wants what he wants, and so he agrees to do it, which takes us into part 3 of the song, which is Back to the Present. And Trey, because he promised her and kind of feels like he made a promise to God, I guess, he's praying for the end of time.
Yeah, so time, let the end of time
come so I can get out of this vow. So it didn't turn out too well. No. The young love didn't turn out too well. Don't promise anything, kiddies, that you don't want to carry through with. Just walk away.
I appreciated what they were doing with the 3 different parts.
Yeah.
I mean, this is probably my least favorite track, all in all.
Yeah, it probably is mine as well. I mean, I do like the last part. I thought it was kind of funny. Just a little bow on the end of like, I can't break the vow.
That's a nice irony at the end.
Yeah, I can't break the vow, so just let the world in. And that takes us to the final track, For Crying Out Loud. Kind of ties together several of the other songs in here. They're brought up. Basically, he's professing his undying love for a woman who is with him through it all. Brings the motorcycle themes back in from the title track. For me, this song was good because it tied everything up. It is a story. It is a rock opera. What eventually was actually a rock opera. Yeah. So he ties it all together, I thought, quite well.
Yeah, I appreciated just the fact that it name checks and dropped lines from various other, and at the end it was unique. He ends up saying to this girl that he wants, loves, and needs her. So now we get all 3 of the 3, not just 2 out of the 3, and just how this person's been around him. Again, this thing is 8+ minutes. I'm kind of a broken record. That could have been chopped a good 3 minutes, I think, and we would have been A-okay. But I get what it's trying to do. It's just, for me personally, that's not the type of music I gravitate to, even after multiple listens, even though I can appreciate where they were going with it. But we end out the record, and now we're going to go to our favorite tracks. For me, it would be 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad.
2 out of 3 Ain't Bad, and Heaven Can Wait. I mean, there's only 7 of them. And that brings us to our overall grade. And I will say this, Trey, as you said, it's an experience album. Obviously, it's well-loved. Obviously, it's a classic because it sold 43 million albums. I can see where you throw this thing on and listen to it, and if you were into this thing in 1977, because your other choice was disco, so I could see how you could be into this. Steinman actually said it didn't fit in with the times. It wouldn't fit in with any times because it's so musically different. I would agree with that. I don't think it's a bad album by any means. So I say all that to tell you that for me, it's a 6.25, which is not a bad rating.
No, I'm going to echo a lot of what you said. This is one where, I can see where they were going with it. I can see why people like it.
Yeah, I can too.
For sure. It just for me personally, in my musical taste, wasn't a fan of it. I'm still glad I listened to it though, because any record that sells 43 million albums, it's got to be doing something right. But I'm going to be in the 5.5 range on this. And if you love this album, I'm not saying your musical taste is
not at all.
It's just not every album's going to hit for everybody. And that was kind of a case here, even though I do respect where they were going with it and where they were.
And their perseverance, 2.5 years to get this thing done.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure those record executives that scoffed at it were kicking themselves after about 10 million, and then it just kept rising and rising. But let us know, y'all, what you think of Bat Out of Hell in the comments below. And Dad, I appreciate all the research. It's fun to dive into these records. And if you enjoyed this video, y'all, be sure to hit that big red subscribe button. We upload multiple times a week in a variety of genres. And thank you guys so much for watching. Happy listening, my friends, and we will see you next time.